Okay,
Yeah.
great. Hadi, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so I will. Uh, uh, um, ok, est-ce que vous voyez mon écran? Oui. So, yeah, okay. So I want to share a little bit my journey with Echo. And when I start just to draft my presentation for that, I ask myself what I want to share with the people. And this picture of the baby with the diaper came to my mind. I don't know why, but I will explain that. I will say I start my journey with ECHO in 2018 when I start my internship. I was in my bachelor degree in biochemistry at the University of Moncton. So this is the first time that I met Celine. I met her before that, but it's some of my classes, but I didn't know her very well. But this is my first time to meet Celine there, and just the first day, Celine start to explain to me what is the echo, and I'm like, okay, what is echo? And I have no idea. And I say, oh my, we have a lot of meeting, and all are in English. And I ask myself why I'm here. Because my two internship before that is more about the lab inside of the lab. So for me, it's the big change, but I'm very interested in that. But the good thing that Celine did, she gave me that book that the name is Dying, the name of the development. I will say this is the best thing that she did, because if she start to give me just a big scientific, scientific book and a lot of scientific article, she gave me that after that book. But it's very interesting because when I start to read that, that resonate a lot with myself. I can see what happened here in New Brunswick because I'm studying New Brunswick, and for me, I felt like just the injustice around the province, and that woman Inca, she touched a lot of things. She used scientific report, scientific article, and also other report for the government to write that book. So that book is very interesting, and she touch everything: the contaminant in flora, fauna, in vegetable, the contamination of air, of water, and also how that touch the farm around. And for me, so wow, I say, okay, we need to do something. I think this is the thing that give me like the strength and say, okay, I want to continue with Celine. And after that, she gave me other things. So for me, I start to grow up with the milk, but in my milk is a lot of interdisciplinary, intersectoral research action. Oh my, I can say how much I heard that in the mouth of Celine every time in my journey. It's like she's very in love with all that war, like intersectoral research action and everything. So I will say with the help of NBN and Celine and also ECHO, because I start to participate in different teams like trainee teams and other things like a comedian with Robert. Oh my, I really like that one, because I think that give me like a boost, like, okay, maybe I can use this kind of thing to start to draw a comic book for children. And this helped me to develop the comic that I publish right now. So after that, I would say in 2019 and 2021, I start my master degree with at the university, and my master project with Celine. And for my master thesis, the project is developed like the map, like using the same methodology that the code environment screen. So it's very interesting because that helped me to interact with the team, like Jico team. It's very fun. Aita, Jordan, Nick. And that helped me to learn more about them too and about their project. And also to interact with a different team for children environmental health here. And I will say one of the things that I use a lot in my thesis degree, it is eco health framework for Cope Canada. Is very interesting, but this thing hurt me a lot through my journey. And after that, in fall 2021, oh, I graduate from ECO, and that's very interesting. Finally, I can start a new journey. I can start a new journey. So after that, I say that I met a lot of people that right now I am working with them in my new journey. So I'm coordinator for Children Environmental Health Collaborative, also the coordinator for um, NB Eco Regional Cases. I'm doing research with Celine at the University of Malta, and I start to do workshop this year with the help of Department of Education from the government of New Brunswick through different schools at New Brunswick. So everything that I learned from my journey, I will say that I'm using right now in my work. So it's very interesting, and I can say that ECO helped me a lot for that. So when I start my journey, for me, I don't have a lot of insight when we talk about interdisciplinary think or intersectoral, what is research action, but that helped me to see like the health in different way. And right now I can have a big picture when we talk about health and the interaction between health and environment. Also that helped me to start to make a link with the governments, because this is one of the subjects that I'm very, very interested on that. So it's this is one thing that I show in my last presentation, but I will say that all that it is my journey, and I will say research action is a focus of everything I'm doing right now. For example, in the NBN, the focus is research action, and in the NBN I can see through every team and every caucus that I'm working with them that we have a lot of intersectoral, interdisciplinary. So I can see that I apply that every time in my job with the NBN. And also I span from all my journey with ECO. I did a lot of presentation, workshop, conference, project with different people. I met a lot of people that are working in different sectors, so it's very intersectoral. Also, when we developed the NB virus screen, we went like in different region here in New Brunswick to visit the municipality, and we had a wonderful workshop and discussion with them, and we can see that it's not just research that we are doing, but it is action too. That, and the focus is like we are not doing research just to publish some scientific paper. We are doing research because we want something, we want to have the impact, and people and community can use that to bring a change. So I will say that this is a wonderful journey, and I'm enjoying a lot my role in the NBN. And last I will say last week, the Environmental Bill of Rights, they introduced that in the legislature. So this is one of the big experience that I have this year too, because it's very interesting to see that we can develop a bill and go and all the process around that, and how they can introduce that in the legislature too. So I will say this is my last diapo. I will say that apart from research and project and learning, I will say it's also a lot of fun to work with people in the ECO network. I have a lot of fun, a lot of project, and I have a chance to connect with the new people and making new friends. I have a lot of connection with Michaela, and this year I received the invitation for the interview for the medical school, so we practice a lot with Michaela. So this is one thing that I will say, if I didn't start to work with ECO, with the member of the ECO network, I will not have a chance to connect with people like Michaela, Aita, Jordan, or Nick. We have the time to relax, even if we don't have a lot of time, and we have a wonderful travel together. And yeah, so I will say that is very interesting, and this is, if people ask me, I will say probably my master degree is the wonderful experience for all in my university, all my travel in the university, because it's very interactive, and that gives me the opportunity to learn more, to explore more, And also, I will say that I have a wonderful supervisor. So I want to thank Celine and also Anika Chiasson, the member in the NBN, and also Riza Mark is the first one that I connect with her when I start with Celine. So it's wonderful to see all that people and to meet all that people in my journey. So that's it.
That's great. Thanks, Sadia. It's so, as someone who haven't met you before, but it's so lovely to learn about your journey, and others here, I think, do know pieces of that. And it's a testament to how we don't always know when we start something where it will take us, and then seeing all these different pieces develop over time. Thanks so much for sharing those reflections.
I'm incredibly excited and passionate about all of the connections that we see in this intersectoral work. And I've had so many amazing opportunities with different research organizations. As Michaela highlighted earlier, too many of them are hard to explain in this short time frame, but I started my involvement with the Environment Community Health Observatory Network, which Angel highlighted in the chat a few comments ago, when I was a high school student in the watershed. And from there, my involvement in eco-health related work kind of spiraled. And now I'm really grateful and excited to say that I'm an advocate for youth voice and youth watershed advocacy, as well as the health and well-being of communities, especially in rural places. So I've had plenty of amazing opportunities to work within the watershed on projects that are helping to amplify youth voice, such as video projects here within the watershed, documenting the cultural diversity and the relationships that a group of primarily Indigenous youth had and have with the watershed, as well as a youth river trip that I've had the wonderful opportunity to participate in and help to organize in the last couple of years. There are so many important things to pull from these conversations. And folks that know me know that I sound like a broken record when I talk about my interest in connections and my passion for the way that all of our lives and the world around us is connected. And jumping off what Cody said, what others said, what Michaela said about creating space for youth, for diverse youth to come and participate in conversations, to feel valued and heard and not tokenized. Making sure that the space that we are creating for youth is equitable is so important. And it's important to consider all of these social justice issues within that, in curating that space, to think about how we invite youth into anti-colonial spaces, how we invite youth into accessible spaces, safe places. I get a lot of my motivation for these topics through the work that I've done on a youth canoe trip with the Nechaka Watershed Roundtable and co-learning in our watersheds and the Rivershed Society of BC. Together this year and in 3 years past, we have gotten a group of youth from the Nechaka Watershed together and hosted a day-long canoe trip down a section of the Nechaka River to really come together and cultivate relationships within a community focused around youth health and well-being and environmental health and well-being. And this space always shocks me with the outcomes. And I think one of the most important reflections that I have from this year past is that youth got more from their learning because they felt valued and safe and appreciated and heard in that space. And I think I had one of the best experiences that one could possibly have as an early career colleague doing work at the nexus of environment and community health when I started with the ECHO network, because I came in in a time when people were starting to ask, how do we get youth involved? And so this is just such a great opportunity for genuine intergenerational learning. And I think that the relationships developed within that period of time really cultivated the space for youth that was equitable and open. And that shapes how I engage youth in my work now. I think this is a great opportunity for us to consider how we bring people to the table, and if we have an idea or if we're starting to question, you know, who should be in this conversation, the invite needs to be extended at that point, not once you've started your work. And that was something that Cody talked about, that's incredibly important. So my hope for the future is that we think about how important the relationships and the mentorship is that we develop within these close connected circles, and we take the time to connect in the way that we're doing right now, because it's so important to kind of manage the heavy weight of everything that we've talked about today, and, you know, the really broken challenges of the world right now. And it's important because these relationships create the space for the next generation of youth to feel really empowered to, you know, start looking at these issues and feeling supported and taking them on. So thanks.
Okay, and so Jordan didn't know she was doing it, but she bridged our story 1 and 2 together in such a beautiful way. So, Jordan, I wonder if you have some reflections on what it's meant to you to be an eco trainee working on this theme of geospatial tools and watershed health, and how echo's informed where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Angel, and great to see everyone again. I won't have any slides today, but I'm sure you can all remember some of the slides I've shared in the past: colorful maps, inflammatory color schemes. But what I wanted to talk about today was basically kind of just this idea about moving out of academia, talking about these issues, and moving into, right now I work with about 8 and growing First Nations communities who are taking charge of their own health, and they're monitoring their phytoplankton in their territories so that they can make decisions as to whether or not their shellfish is safe to harvest, because the DFO's current approach is not serving them very well. And so that's sort of where I am right now. And it's just been really interesting to kind of try to apply these concepts that I've learned while in Echo to a very different but very practical kind of in a practical way. And I think one of the main things that I've kind of noticed that has been the big kind of challenge for me is the community in the Echo, the environment. I kind of thought I had pretty well understood before I got into the Echo network. And then the health, I was just getting into the health field and doing my master's in health. And so that was pretty new, but I felt like I was getting a bit of a grip on it. And then this community part was always sort of this piece in the background that I was not quite, I knew it was important, I knew how it fit, but we just could, in our case study, and I was with the FNHA case study, it was COVID and all that, and we really didn't really get any opportunities to engage any communities, except for like a very brief engagement up in Dease Lake. And so I felt that I was really kind of lacking that piece as I transitioned from the Echo Network into my new role here. And at the same time, I moved out of Metro Vancouver into a very rural and remote part of Vancouver Island, where the population is about 1,000 people, and there's more wolves and bears here than people probably, and kind of found myself in that part where, you know, we were talking about the health of rural and remote people and Indigenous. I'm not Indigenous, but I am rural and remote now, at least, and I am in a very small community, and these sort of just kind of seeing how nuanced the interplay is between the environment and health and the community has been kind of pretty eye-opening to me now. I think that while the state of health and the state of the environment are kind of states. It's like, well, it's healthy or it's unhealthy. It's the environment is intact or it's not intact, you know. But community is like, it's not a community or not a community. Like there's communities. Some of them have a lot of problems and are maybe the sources of problems, and some of them have solutions and are the source of solutions. And so I feel like this community piece has really been just so in the forefront for me in the last little while, and just seeing how I think that this is where I really see a lot of potential for the solutions to be born out of this area. And I think, you know, these locally tailored solutions that in my area, you know, it would be a red dot on a map if I was making it. We're in a very low income, low education, very vulnerable kind of population. And, you know, communicating in this type of a community, I don't think change will come without communication. And I think that like the sort of themes and jargon that I've learned in Echo doesn't really translate into communicating. Like I can't talk about transdisciplinarity. I can't talk about a lot of these things. And so it's just been, yeah, I think it's been really educational for me to just to think about how to actually take this out of academia and into community. And I think that language is a big piece of this. And I think that art-based narratives are a great way of communicating. And I think well-designed geospatial tools are also very great at communicating just across the field with any education level, any background. And I think that those are sort of the main messages I wanted to kind of share today. But yeah, happy to open it up from there.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan Doyon. I was born here on the unceded territories of the Trainee. I've been here for 25 years now. And I'd like to start off by sharing that I'm going to share with you all the reflection that I wrote. I am notorious for sometimes speaking too much and taking too long and rambling on about things I'm passionate about. But I wanted to share as my first reflection that I actually had difficulty coming up with what to say with you all, and that's not a problem. That's actually a testimony to how profound of an impact Echo has had on my life, because my simple answer is it's changed everything for me, the trajectory of my academic pursuits, and also what I hope to do professionally and personally. So I began as an RA with Echo in the fall of 2021. The Pulse series in November of that year was the very first time that I've ever seen so many people of different upbringings, disciplines, and backgrounds come together to address issues at the nexus of climate change and health and social well-being. I share this because this was also the first time in my undergraduate experience that I felt a genuine explosion of excitement and inspiration, because there's something so profound about having all of these voices come together. I've never experienced it before. During this period, I was trying to figure out what I would do for my undergraduate project. And the Pulse series inspired me to pursue a scoping review, looking at different ways in which communities were championing and bringing together multiple voices and knowledge systems to create culturally relevant indicators grounded in place. There was no way the journey was going to end there, though, and this led me to pursue graduate studies where I've been exposed to numerous wonderful Echo-related events and folks that would come to shape my personal and professional pursuits. I'm going to speak about one event in particular briefly. During the Cowichan gathering, not only did I see all kinds of beautiful people come together to learn with one another and voluntarily confront complexity, but I saw right in front of me the power of youth. This wasn't at all obvious to me before, because we live in a society and an academic culture that tends to dismiss these voices and does not fully respect their value as contributors in society. But during this gathering, I saw one of the attending youth courageously share in front of everyone what had happened to his traditional territory and to his ancestors. He told us how this was now impacting him and his community today. And then I saw all of these adults that are part of various sectors in society tear up. And many of them expressed how touched they were by this story. This response was one of the most beautiful moments that I will remember forever. We talk about how to better understand health, especially as it relates to environment and community. We talk about how we can try and measure it or conceptualize it, and how we can then act and create policies and practices that are good for a community. And I saw right there that this is how it should be. All of us together, listening humbly to one another, laughing and sometimes crying together, and aiming towards a flourishing society together. I'm grateful to have been exposed to many more encounters like the one that I've just described through conferences, such as last year's PHABC in Victoria, my time with co-learning, and through our most recent gathering in Tanis's territories of Stella 10. They say never, but I think it's reasonable to share that without taking that first step to connect with Margot and then become a part of ECHO, I may have never learned on a deeper level about power dynamics and inequities in the production and dissemination of knowledge, policies, and practices. I may have never seen or felt in my soul the power of community and youth, or been exposed and committed to the pursuit of intergenerational justice. I may have never understood the necessity of transcending the confines of silos. I may have never learned about strength-based and equity-based conceptions of health and well-being, and I may have never witnessed firsthand the power of Indigenous-formed approaches and knowledges in fighting climate-related complexities and creating healthy and sustainable futures for all. The ECHO family has provided all of this for me, and much more. I look forward to continuing this learning journey and carrying these lessons forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's always so beautiful to hear you talk. Kira, I know you only have a minute, but would you like to chime in and give the same answer or answer the same question?
Yeah, for sure. Can everyone hear me? Awesome. Yeah, I'm calling in from Burnaby as well, an unceded Coast Salish territory. I guess I just wanted to, I have a lot of honestly similar reflections about the ECHO network. I'm a relative newcomer. I was 2 months into my master's at the Cowichan event last year, so it was kind of my first landing place in my master's and kind of with the Reset Lab. And for me, it was really powerful. I hadn't involved in a health oriented space before. And it was powerful because honestly, it brought together so many different disciplines and so many different people from all walks of life. And I think the grounding in place and focus on community priorities has been really significant in the conversations that were happening there, but also the conversations that have informed the research that I'm doing now. So I really, yeah, I guess I'm just really grateful to have been kind of tuned in to those conversations while they were happening. And I think another kind of reflection, because I got to go to the second event in Stellarton as well. I did the Copay Canada course. And so during that time, we were learning about all of these different approaches to eco-health. And something that kind of stood out to me was, I guess, the principle of knowledge to action. And that came up when I was reflecting back on the Cowichan event in terms of, I'd never been in a place in academia before that event where so much, I think, attention and there was a thoughtful approach to how do we come together and co-create knowledge and also share knowledge and reflect on how the work that we're doing is applicable to different places and different peoples because of different contexts and specifically like the context of different resource extraction industries. So that was a theme that came up in Cowichan and also in Stellarton. So yeah, all of those things are things that inform the research that I'm doing now, and I'm just really grateful to have been tuned into those conversations.
Yeah, I'm joining today from the ancestral territories of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Chippewa, and Mississaugas of the credit. And let me just start by saying, as soon as I stepped onto this call, I am feeling the love. I'm stepping out of a 2-day intensive on climate change and health, all oriented around strategic agenda setting. And I continue to be gobsmacked in those conversations about the degree of ecological blindness in that space, especially amongst health systems practitioners and health researchers, who are, often really heavily steeped in epidemiological analysis, thinking about, bivariate associations between exposure and outcome. And this type of complexity that we're just talking about today, and again, apologies that I haven't been able to attend the entire session, It's scary to a lot of people, and it's still new to a lot of people. So to the extent that Margot was picking up and reflecting on, this isn't a problem that we knew that we were going to solve in the context of the ECHO network. It's been really, really fabulous and so incredibly helpful to be on this learning journey together and be thinking about strategies and ways in which we can continue to make sense of the whole together. That question of asking, who's missing and who's in the room and what's absent. I mean, it's notable that this meeting that I was just attending, it was environment was underrepresented. We had a single One Health researcher that was the voice of all animal health in these conversations. There were very few community and indigenous voices in the room, no industry, so to the extent that the ECHO network has really encouraged certainly me, and I think many of the trainees and researchers who are a member of this group to be really quite critical and questioning and considerate of, what are the perspectives that are absent and missing from those conversations. I think that's definitely a testament and a strength to that type of training environment. ECHO was a place of multiple transitions for me. This is dating myself, but holy shit, Margot, like I'm thinking back to the Cirque days, which really preceded ECHO. That was 2015. That's almost 9 years ago that I landed in the North at UNBC. And, since then have transitioned between Michael Smith fellowships and CIHR fellowships, neither of which would have been possible without my participation and involvement and engagement with all of you at ECHO. And then ultimately leading up to this recent position as an assistant professor with the Faculty of Health Sciences. And I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to have this exposure to all of you, to and really being able to be part of a learning environment that really prioritized training and cultivated not only this degree of personability and these deep relationships that we all share, but the very pragmatic things that I think that trainees will come to realize and truly benefit from years down the road in terms of their career. And some of the things, those pragmatic things that were incredibly helpful for me were things around grant management and team management, partner management, opportunities to convene and organize, really thinking about all those intangible aspects of managing staff, and most importantly, mentorship. And I think, I caught a little bit of what Jonathan was sharing in his reflections, and Kira as well. I really can't say enough good things about the culture of ECHO and its orientation towards being as supportive as possible of early career researchers and trainees in this space. And it's just been so incredibly helpful and provocative and challenging in the best possible way for me as I start to think about and reflect on what it means for me to be entering into that space as both an educator, someone who really continues to want to do applied research with partners, and to bring that aspect of mentorship and training to the projects that I'm now looking to seed and support in my research program. I think that some of the things that we did that I'm really excited about and excited to continue working on that space is around this idea of integrative surveillance. We seeded a lot of really interesting projects, 3 different provincial pilots of this novel surveillance tool in the ECHO screen. That's work that continues to garner a significant amount of interest, especially from the federal family. Health Canada has been really, really generous in terms of funding spin-offs of that project, one in the Alberta foothills. We've got a publication that's going to be forthcoming next year on that work. We've been really fortunate, again, working with Health Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, to work in collaboration with Northern Ontario Indigenous communities, and to really center their voices and perspectives and conversations and dialogues about this type of indicator work, and really challenge ourselves to imagine, how could a tool like this be useful for meeting community goals? How is it that we enhance and we refine and we continue to use it as an opportunity to center Indigenous voices, and to be humble about what we don't know in this particular space, and what else we need to take notice of? I think those tangible outcomes, those things that CIHR cares about, are maybe not going to be reflected, and we'll have to be creative in terms of how we do our final report back. Because learning is an outcome, training is an outcome, partnerships as a continued strength in this space are all exemplars, I think, of things that I take away from ECHO and really want to hold up. But I think my biggest message is that, you know, and Margot and I were chatting about this the other night, and it kind of comes back to, you know, how do we solve these problems, and, you know, what's really kind of new in this space. And I think this meeting in particular that I'm stepping out of, it was just really reaffirming for me around the value of what ECHO brings to these conversations. And the truth is that these messages and this work that we've engaged in is still going to be new and so necessary to so many people who are working in these spaces, especially those who are working in the health system. And so insofar as we've seated, you know, a fabulous group of trainees in these really fantastic collaborative relationships, those are the true legacies of this project that are going to continue to live on well beyond the tenure of ECHO. So maybe I'll leave it there, and maybe I'll just share one little bit of good news. I've been pestering Kate Froelich for the last couple of days, who's the new director for IPPH. Kate has really excitedly decided to focus climate justice and climate change and health in the new strategic vision of IPPH. And there is no promises, but some rumblings from CIHR around reinvigorating the EHSI within a concerted focus around climate change and health equity. So again, would not have been possible, I don't think, without the success of all of the EHSI projects, and indeed, you know, some of the really strong equity-oriented work that's come out of ECHO. So kudos to all, congratulations. And again, just continues to be a huge pleasure and a complete and utter privilege to work with you fantastic human beings. Thanks.
For having invited me. My name's Michaela. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently on the Treaty 7 territory in Southern Alberta. I'm a first-year medical student at the University of Calgary, and I previously worked, I was very privileged to work with many of the people on this call, but there's lots of new faces as well. So I was working with a couple of research groups up and around the area and in northern British Columbia at the University of Northern BC. And all of the work that these research groups were doing can't really easily be summarized in the 2-3 minutes that we have to introduce ourselves. But I wanted to give folks an idea of some of these themes. And those included place-based learning, youth engagement, collaborative watershed management, and then this idea of strengthening capacity to better think integratively, particularly through the tri-lens of environment, community, and health. So the experience of getting to work with these research groups and all the folks on this call has really molded my brain. And I knew that it had before, but when I'm sitting in lecture in medical school, I'm realizing how much my brain has changed and how I'm thinking critically and analyzing the information that's being given to us. And I'm lucky to be extroverted enough to speak up in large group and ask questions. And I hope that that helps mold the brains of some of my colleagues and classmates as well. But the impact of those research groups has just become really apparent when we talk about complexity, and health is complex. Thinking about this question, what role can early career colleagues take? 3 words came to mind. So those were integrate, which I replaced with recruitment. I thought maybe that was a bit too strong, but integrate, flexibility, and challenge. So when I'm noticing the spaces around me, there seems to be almost like a dichotomy of people who have had the privilege, like myself, to get involved in One Health or eco health or planetary health and be in spaces like these and have this exposure. And then on the other hand, there's this group of people who haven't had those experiences and maybe aren't as willing to find the spaces to get engaged. And so when I replaced the word recruitment with integrate, it was intentional because I thought, you know, I'm someone I can bring others in and kind of show them that, hey, these spaces are super welcoming, and kind of give it a try and see what you can take from it, because what we're all taking out of this is going to be a little bit different, but the overarching message is still important. So then it was flexibility. And this was kind of taking the opportunity to learn and relearn. And we've touched on this a lot today. And I think that in my role as I'm just starting out on this like medical journey, I'm unlearning a lot, and I'm relearning a lot too. So trying to remember what it feels like to be this flexible and moving forward, encouraging myself, others, preceptors to be flexible too. And that means, you know, reevaluating our practices and our approaches and updating them when needed, when we have new information coming to light. And the last word was challenge. And I wanted to share, I didn't in my intro, but U of C, or University of Calgary, has a new curriculum this year. And there's such an there's an appetite to change the curriculum even further. So this is like a skeleton structure of what they want to do moving forward. And it's really neat. It's moving away from that like systems-based medical approach. And my understanding is the legacy curriculum, you know, you do your 3 months on public health or population health, and then you'd move on into like the real medicine. And so we're not doing that in my curriculum. We get to always be bringing in public health, bringing in population health to each of our lectures, really. And each week it's actually centered. And so what the challenge then comes to, when you have the opportunity to give feedback, give it and try to help these curriculums build themselves, because like I said, there's an appetite for positive change, and I can contribute to that, you know, by bringing in some of what I've learned here and giving that feedback. So even though it can feel daunting, I think it's important to take that on individually. And then finally, my hope is just all the passion that we have in this room, and especially in the chat box. I think just hoping that that becomes more infectious and that more people want to get involved. I don't think there's any one right way to practice eco-health, but there's lots of ways that people can get involved and start to think about these things.